Start. Good afternoon. My name is Russell Gomersall from Business Process Experts, and welcome to the webinar, Keep Calm, the End of R3 is Near, or How Business Flows Helps You from Falling Off the Digital Cliff. The idea for the webinar is a kind of like follow-up to our blog we had on our website concerning this topic. And let me start with a short introduction of, let's say, the team presenting. So my name, as mentioned, Russell Gomersall. I'm a partner of BP Experts, and I'm accompanied by Ike Allen. He's a manager of BP Experts, and over the last year, he's extensively been working on our, we say, business flows topic, especially in the context of value flow and this S4HANA, these S4HANA initiatives. So BP Experts, for you who do not know the company, just a very brief introduction to us as a company. We were founded in 2012 as a spin-off from IdeaShare Consulting. So in the past, we've always been involved in process management in the context of large transformations, originally more focused around chemicals and pharmaceuticals. But over the last year, since our independency, we have gone, say, kind of like wide range through the industries, but always with a focus on producing companies or companies that develop, produce, sell, and distribute own products. We see ourselves as business architects, so we help the customers design process and IT architectures and translate the business requirements into solutions, and act as a coach. And typically, we are always asked, say, how can we kind of like approach a certain situation, but also kind of like how can we accelerate this process so that due to the experience we have, you do not have to reinvent the wheel every time. And coming to this specific topic, next slide, is that due to the announcement from SAP that it's very clear and apparent now that over the next years, every existing SAP customer or R3 or ECC customer will have to somehow think about concretely about the migration to an S4HANA stack. The different stakeholders have, of course, a lot of questions. And we've encountered a lot of situations where customers concretely say we have to do an evaluation. And due to this and the questions we actually had, we saw that there are a lot of different stakeholders and a lot of different questions. So typically a CIO is more interested in, for example, how HANA will support his digitalization initiatives, or what kind of opportunities are within this new technology. A CFO is more interested in the cost aspects. But the SAP application experts who spend the last 10, 15 years building up and rolling out some standardized ECC stack is, of course, asking how big is the impact if we have to migrate, as especially the announcement makes clear that S4HANA is a new technology and there are a lot of changes to be expected. Last but not least, the business is asking how far are our existing requirements really covered, and how far are these really supported with the HANA, and where are there opportunities to get even better and meet the challenges of the future. So here I'd like to hand over to Ike so he can take you through the first part of the approach and the methodology that we've developed. And yeah, I'll take over the second part.
Thank you, Russell. So just quickly going through, given these questions that the various stakeholders ask in regards to how basically to go about this implementation of S4HANA, and principally how to actually start the evaluation prior to the decision on implementation. So here I'll just like to run you through what we see as an approach to go about this evaluation. And we see the first aspects to consider is that companies should ask themselves, what do we do now and what we do in the future? What we do now referring to how do we run our business at the moment, what are our business models, basically how do we make our money. Future, we're referring to strategy here, how do we want to run the business in the future, and what are the key aspects to consider in regards to a future business strategy. Taking that into consideration, we can now look at the first question about what we do now in regards to scoping of end-to-end scenarios, meaning the end-to-end scenarios comprise the business cases of the company, the operating models, the objectives, and also the business requirements that we have within a business. And for example, a company which produces products for sale would have then sales to stock, as you see in the middle here. That would be then they produce, lay on stock, and then the customer orders it, will be delivered to the customer. But they also have different variants of their business or operating models, such as make to order, which would mean that a sales or customer order will trigger production. Yeah. Now the business scenarios cover different functions of the business. For example, order to cashier, which would be sales. We also have procurement and other aspects like production and of course accounting. Looking for the future, now again, as I mentioned, for the S/4HANA evaluation, the company will be looked to say, okay, what do we want to achieve in the future? And these take into account the business strategy, which is then the overall scope and direction of the business, as far as strategic, tactical, and operational goals. An example of that would be a company which then wants to become a customer-centric company. That would be its goal for the future. A business driver is then people, knowledge, and conditions that initiate and support activities for which the business wants to design. And looking back at this example, a company that wants to become customer-centric company would then aim to transfer product innovation into solution offerings combining products. Value drivers are then what the entity wants to do to increase the value of its products and services. And an example of that is then the reduction of time to market for new products. So summarizing this slide again, a business strategy for the future which would want to become a customer-centric company would look to innovate new products, and in order to do that efficiently, they would want to reduce the time to market of new products in order to satisfy customer demand. Now I'm just gonna walk you through quickly our methodology for going about the S/4HANA implementation. Remember, we said before, companies should focus on what they're doing now, which would be then the end-to-end scenarios, and what they want to focus in the future, which would be the business strategy, business drivers, and value drivers. Now, what we have is a reference model repository with end-to-end scenarios ranging from aspects of sales through to production and also procurement. And with these, we also have in parallel a library of business drivers and also value drivers, which are based off of S/4HANA process documentation. So we went and screened the S/4HANA documentation, what they say they provide, and kind of like summarize that and compile that together and put them in relation to the business drivers and scenarios. And also, in addition, we mapped SAP capabilities, which are the functionality that SAP has, to the value drivers. So in order to getting more into detail, I would like to show you now what this actually looks like in our repository. So we go from top to bottom, saying the company wants to become a customer-centric company. This is the first aspect here that you see in the pink. This is mapped to then the business driver, provide timely and reliable customer promise, which are in turn mapped to the individual value drivers here. And so this is actually an extract directly from our repository. Now, in the next step, we have a mapping of the business or the operating model, which are the end-to-end scenarios, to the SAP capabilities and also then the value driver. So here we have business scenarios mapped to capabilities, and here also value drivers. So in this sense, we go back and look at, in the evaluation, both questions. On the one hand, we said, know what you do now, which are the end-to-end scenarios, know what you do in the future, which are the business and value drivers. And as you see in this slide here, it is then a linking between our current business and the value drivers, meaning what we want to achieve in the future. So now, summarizing our suggested approach, we say first, scope your end-to-end scenarios, prioritize your business drivers, and then conduct a value-driven SAP HANA evaluation. What are the objectives for the evaluation? They are to get accustomed to the terminology that SAP has, scope required S/4HANA solutions and architecture, and actually challenge the functionalities against your business requirements, challenge the functionalities that SAP provides in order to get a clear understanding of whether they fulfill your requirements, your business requirements. Also, identify relevant business benefits for the business case. So in the end, out of the evaluation, we believe that you want to have a business case out of that, and in order to do so, you would have to go through these 3 steps. Scoping your end-to-end scenarios, which are your operating models, prioritizing your business drivers, which is then the strategy for the future, and then conducting the S/4HANA evaluation. But that's not all. I'll now hand over to Russell, who will then provide more details on the impact analysis.
So on the one hand, it's nice to know the business benefits and to challenge the promises of SAP against the functional coverage. And what we think is really important is that we have taken the SAP, well, the provided documentation concerning value drivers and capabilities to actually map them against a more neutral end-to-end scenario and also called more neutral business driver. But of course, to be able to develop a roadmap, you need to also answer the question of the SAP application manager who's saying, yeah, but we've invested so much in the current SAP system, it's really covering our business requirements. So where exactly are the impacts to be expected? And here, due to the fact that the end-to-end scenarios that you've scoped, they all comprise a sequence of processes or processes included in the scenarios, you've already pre-scoped your business process. So out of the scoping session, you automatically, using business flows, you already have a business process master list. And here we have taken the S/4HANA documentation, the simplification list, which is quite a comprehensive documentation of where there is an impact on processes, and have kind of like decompiled this and then mapped the simplification list, or let's say kind of like the content of the simplification list against the business processes. So this will then extend, especially for, of course, customers that are not that kind of like implementing S/4HANA on a greenfield, but who are actually kind of like considering the migration scenario, help them actually have a very structured approach on analyzing the impact of the migration. And then based on this, then say with the business benefits and the positive business case, and including the information of the impact analysis, then we believe you have a solid foundation to actually develop a HANA strategy and a roadmap on the way forward. So maybe just to show you the simplification list and how we have decompiled this. So typically, also in the documentation itself, the impact categorization is that certain processes are not impacted. Some of them, due to the different architectural setup, they are simplified. Sometimes functionalities or transactions are replaced, and sometimes there is some kind of like an integration aspect to be taken into consideration. And sometimes also the functional capabilities of the process have been extended. This, for example, could be with APO modules that are more integrated and accessible, TM9, ACP. So there's a lot of functional enhancements that actually can be taken into consideration and seen as an opportunity. So here we didn't do it on an end-to-end, level, but we actually kind of like went onto this is on the left, you see a kind of like a typical sequence of an end-to-end scenario, so the sales of stock products. So within this, you have a different processes from different areas. For example, also from global trade, which is also something that is heavily impacted if you still have the old global trade kind of like implementation on board. And logistics, so in the end-to-end scenarios, you have a comprehensive set of relevant processes, and for each of them, we have then analyzed the simplification list and the impacts. So within our methodology, if you take me to the next slide, please. We have now, next to the normal description or attributes that we have in our repository, which are the description, the scope and activities, outcome and business rules, we are now adding additional information, so additional attributes, which is the categorization extension in this case for check available to promised at sales order entry. We have a short description concerning the simplification list impact, and we have an own attribute that refers to which chapter within the simplification list this refers to. And so you have a direct reference to the SAP note, respectively simplification list chapter, where, say, this information was actually kind of like extracted from. And then we have advisory notes where we interpret from our perspective the impact of this simplification list, let's say, note concerning this process. What has to be taken into consideration? If it's more business impact, if the process has to be redesigned and rethought through, or if it's, say, something just of pure technical nature. So what we offer here is then really per process already an input, which then again in own workshops you can actually then use to then have a much more solid base of evaluating how many processes are impacted heavily, how much is the business really impacted during a migration, and which will really help you then develop a solid roadmap and also help you get a much better feeling for the efforts and the impact that's coming towards you when talking about a migration scenario. Okay, next slide. So looking at just summarizing the approach. So we say you have to know what your business is about, scope the end-to-end scenarios in order to do a solid evaluation. So when you kind of like talk to SAP or system integrators that conduct these HANA evaluation workshops, you have a clear, structured documentation of the scope of your business, the scope of the considered migration, and you have a clear listing of your business requirements. The business drivers clearly then help you prioritize what to actually look at during the evaluation to really see which are the topics you want to touch in the evaluation workshops where you believe that you need to change and you need to transform into a digital company, and thus making then the HANA evaluation much more focused. The impact analysis, as I said, we've already pre-compiled attributes so that based on a process library, you already have a lot of work already kind of like done in order to actually analyze in detail on a process level the impacts, and from this then develop the HANA strategy and roadmaps. So in this context, also to summarize, I just give it a click. To summarize, so we have a product offering here that, say, with our process repository, we have a complete reference model for industries to actually do the scoping and build up the business process master list. We have now built up a business driver library, so where we have taken a lot of the content, the SAP HANA capabilities, the stated SAP HANA value drivers, mapped them against business drivers and business strategy, and built up a library, linked these to the end-to-end scenarios. These are already in our internal development. They're already finished. We just need to kind of like transport them into our collaboration platform for the customers, but this is due in May. And the aforementioned impact content, so the extension of the processes with these attributes, this will also be released in May. So this is kind of like the product offering, but of course, products and accelerators are always quite nice. Important is, of course, that you need typical workshops, and we believe that, say, a lot of companies already have their end-to-end documented, so they don't really need the scoping. Maybe they already have a good idea of the business drivers and the way they're set up, but here maybe the library can help them actually map them out to end-to-end scenarios. Definitely conducting and then evaluating and extracting the information during a HANA evaluation itself. This is something which is really makes sense to actually kind of like invite SAP or system integrators to really dig deep into the actual functions and the system capabilities. But for the process-based impact analysis, and especially around the develop HANA strategy and roadmap, these are all phases where we as business process experts actually also offer services. Maybe just give it a click, Ike. Okay. So from our side, that was a brief run through our offering there and our view concerning this topic of the R3 end is near, and everybody's talking about we need to look at this more in detail. We need to think about what is relevant for us and what we need to focus on. And this was also what we covered in the blog and what we wanted to cover in the webinar. My suggestion is that for questions, if you have questions, I will just unmute because we're not so many participants today, as that I think it'll turn into chaos. So if you agree, I will just turn on the audio, and if you have, I will unmute. So if there is anybody who maybe has a question concerning the topic today, I will gladly try to answer whatever considerations or feedback you have.
Okay, this is Ulrike Reders von Schilke speaking.
Hello.
Hello. Our company is also discussing this topic, and in our case, the IT department is more or less at the moment running the HANA project. It's more at the moment. It's more in the first steps. But when we talk to the IT department, of course, they say SAP has this kind of templates or model companies with S4HANA, and will bring along this, also bring along end-to-end processes and process documentation. You mentioned before that you kind of structured and simplified that what they are offering. Did I understand that right?
What we mainly compiled is on the simplification is a documentation of for customers that are specifically migrating where the impacts are, because with the S4HANA the whole architecture changes. There's a lot of transactions that are being replaced by maybe functions in NetWeaver Business Client. There are certain functional add-ons due to the in-memory technology, and they have actually put together, I think it's something like it's some 650 pages document where they actually discuss very in detail how during a migration, the more on a functional level, there is an impact. This can be master data, this can be on a transactional level, this can be kind of like more from a functional business process perspective. And this is something that we decompiled and mapped against business processes.
Yeah, so the simplification list is provided by SAP to state the impacts of the HANA on existing systems or existing releases of SAP, and we map the simplification to the processes to give you an idea which processes are impacted by this new system.
Yeah, so and the other, with the model company, for us the question is how do you prepare that if you just look at a model company, you will see the, let's say, the standard cases, say for sales or for procurement, that they are handled. You will definitely see very good examples of how the new technology concerning Fiori apps or maybe some kind of like in-memory technology is used. So definitely as a use case, it's good. But to be able to challenge the functional coverage and really get an impact analysis, we believe it is necessary to kind of like go through prior a scoping session and say, okay, but we also need these integrated subcontracting production scenarios, because these are things that our SAP guys have built up over the last couple of years, and they're vital for our business. So challenge them then on not the easy make to stock sales of stock materials, but to challenge them to show them the solution or how they would cover this functionality that you have built up to specifically meet your business demands. And this typically doesn't have to be filled out on a specific detail level, you know, BPMN or anything, but really kind of like on a high level, just the scenario with the description, what is the objective of this, and which typical modules in the past were covered, so that you have some kind of like integrated sales that triggers then the procurement to do something. I'm sure that they also cover it, but it's very interesting to challenge them how then this is set up in the system. It'll also give you then a better impression on when they talk about model companies, or they talk about their hybrids or Ariba, or they talk about their success factor kind of like solutions or applications, you can get a better grasp on which of these will really be in scope of your migration. So which of these capabilities / then solutions do you actually have to take into consideration during your migration? So that's, yeah, does that answer your question a bit?
Yeah, perfectly, yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know if someone else has a question. Otherwise, I have another one. I
think you're fine.
Okay, you mentioned that you can deliver this in May 2018. So how will this look like? Will this be a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation? So how will this look like, this process impact content?
Okay, so the process impact content will be attributes on the existing process. So within the process library, we will have additional attributes, and there we will you will have these. You can say kind of like in a process fact sheet. You will then see per process this, and of course then principally if you have them as a you also have some kind of like reporting the standard process functionality to actually access these attributes. If you then compile a BPML list and export it to Excel, principally you will then also have the data in any form that you wish.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and concerning the business driver library, we're still also kind of like looking at the explicit way we would provide it to customers that use our collaboration platform, so Signavio, because we've mapped out the content in our internal repository, which is a different tool. I'm not going to make any adverts here, but it is ours. But we kind of like keep our repository in ours and Signavio, and we still have to kind of like, so that's why I haven't demonstrated it today. We haven't finally decided how in a glossary we will kind of like maintain this library customers who have access to the to our Signavio collaboration tool.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so that'll be coming.
Will we get this presentation at the end of the WebEx session?
So we've recorded the session, and you will get the slides and the recording as a link after this session. We'll provide it to all the participants.
Yeah, thank you. No, very, very interesting.
Super. So if nobody else has questions and telephones are ringing, I would maybe...
To the last slide, yeah?
Yeah. Then I would like to thank you very much for your participation. If you have any questions with the presentation, of course, you have our email addresses and telephone numbers, and we'll be glad to answer any questions concerning this topic. And hoping to hear from you soon, either in the next webinar or via direct contact. Hi, do you want to say bye-bye?
Yes. Thank you very much for your attention, and also hope to hear from you soon. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.